Getting close to festival of Passover, so we start with few halachot in regard to Passover. Taf Ayin Gimel Shulchan Aruch 473, the code. נוטל ידיו לצורך טיבול ראשון ולא יברך על נטילה. One should wash his hands for the sake of first dipping. He should not make a blessing over washing. You know, when we start the Haggadah, he should then take some of the karpas, less than olive bark, dip in the vinegar and made the blessing of Boreh Pri Ha'adama and eat it. The Mishnah Brura said one should have in mind that by means of the blessing he is discharging his obligations, his obligation to make it over the maror as well, which he will eat subsequently. That's the achronim. But the code said he should not make an after blessing over it. Usually we have the grace after meal. So they said this even apply if he ate an olive bark, kezait of it. This is because the prior blessing also relate to the maror, as follow from what is explained above. Consequently, the blessing for after the meal, which will discharge the obligation to make an after blessing over the maror that we will eat during the meal, will also relate to the karpas, which ate previously. That's part of what Bi'ur Halacha said and the Gra said. Back to the code. He should subsequently take from the pile of 3 matzot. You know, Kohen Levi Israel, we have 3 matzot. The matzah in the middle and break it into 2. He should give a half of it to one of the diners to be preserved for the afikoman. Apikuman to the very end, like the dessert. The half should be put underneath the cloth, and the second half he should put between the 2 remaining of the whole matzot. There's several reasons. One of them is that's the way that the poor people used to always keep some food, so they have something for later. And the Mishnah Brura said that in the middle, break into 2, the middle matzah. This is done in order to comply with the fact that the scripture describes matzah as the bread of poverty, lechem oni, as it's usual for the poor man to have only part of a loaf, as we mentioned. The author of the Shulchan Aruch states that one should break the middle matzah because the blessing over the eating matzah will relate essentially to the matzah and the blessing of the hamotzi that one says first, which will relate to the upper matzah, which is lying in the side in front of him. Then they said that he should give a half of it. This is a require, so that both times when one eats for the sake of eating matzah, when one eats the first olive bark and when one eats the afikoman, the eating will be part of the loaf. It is desirable for that piece, which is to serve the afikoman, to be larger piece of the matzah. That's what the achronim. And let's conclude it. And they said the half should be put underneath a cloth. This should be done in remember of what it stated in the Torah, the dough bundled in the robes. There are people who put the matzah for the afikoman on the shoulders, like the Egyptian Jews. I saw them doing that in remembering of the exodus from Egypt. One should be careful to wrap the afikoman in cloth which is not laundered with wheat starch, since the covers of the pillows, right, are probably laundered with wheat starch.
Right, yeah.
Yes. And then they said, after that, he should raise the fish which contain the matzah, the dish, I'm sorry, which contains the matzah, and say the passage, Halach ma'anya diachalo avatana barad Mitzrayim, in the language of Manishtana. The Mishnah Brura said together with everything on it, and it's unnecessary to remove the cook article from it. She said lach ma'anya. There's 2 versions. There are some say that kehalach ma'anya, and some say halach ma'anya. But he said one might say this passage loud. And now the Rama, he said one should say it in a language that is understood by everyone there, the women, the children, everyone. Alternatively, one should explain the matter to them And he said that the Rema means by this that one should do so from the passage Halach Ma'anya onward at the passage at the beginning of the Agada. And he said the language that they understand by this one will fulfill the biblical binding scripture that said, and you shall tell your son. So you need to tell it in a language that they understand. And he concluded and he said, this is how the Re of London acted. He will say the entire Haggadah in the vernacular so that it should be understood by everyone, the women, the children, everyone. So he said this is necessary, Mishnah said, because the mitzvahs of the Seder night and the saying of the Haggadah are also incumbent upon everyone, including women and children. So that's a very important halacha. And then he concluded the code. Then he should order the matzot to be removed from the table and place it at the end of the table as if they are already eaten, so that the children will notice and ask about it. The whole key is vehigalta lebincha. The daf that we're about to study, page 152, and in Mitzvah Hashem we're going to conclude this parak. Page 152 is Agadeta. It's mainly derivative stories relate to the end of life, the importance of investing our time and effort in study Torah and mitzvot, and the difference between youth and the old age, but also several indirect halachot in regards to the end of life as well. 152, 2 lines from the top of the page. Bayom shiazu shomrei habayit v'itavtu. This is the sentence from the book of Ecclesiastes. King Solomon tells us, Bayom shiazu shomrei habayit, on the day that the keepers of the house shall tremble, elu aksalim ve'atzlaot. That's applied to the menstrual, the body, the part of the body that start flack and ribs and start feeling. And when the day the strong men will bow themselves, elu shokaim, these are the thighs, uvatlu atochanot, elu ashinaim, and the grinders cease. The King Solomon implied to the teeth, you're getting old, the teeth running out, v'chashchu arot ba'arubot elo enaim, and those that look out the windows and shall be dim, it's applied to the eyes, which become dimmer. So it's all idea that it's like Hurban, the same way as you have the distractions that goes slowly and decay. King Solomon applied to a person's body, that the older you get, the less control over your body. It was a place that, if you remember, we studied in Kuftet Zayin in 116. We study about Bei Avidan. It was a place that all the heretics have argument with the rabbis, and the Caesar forced the rabbis to go there and have arguments with them, debates, which unfortunately our people suffer throughout generation. So Caesar asked this great rabbi, how come you didn't see you in that place that they argue? So he answered and he said, Mamar letu tlag sacharuni glidin. So in my book, Biura Klomar Berashi al Hashas, Rashi here several times used the word Klomar, so I try to elaborate. You're welcome to go and read it. In very short, Rashi here explained the mashal and the nimshal, what's the connection between the using of certain words to what it means, but in general what he tried to say is tu tlag, it's analog to say that the snowy mountain is surrounded with ice. So what he tried to say? He tried to say that the hair turned white, I turned very old, my hair are white, kalboi lo navchim, tachanoi lo tachanim, the dog did not bark, he's grinding as he's grinding. So what does that mean? The dog, he meant to say the voice. My voice, my hair is white, my voice is no longer heard, and the season I'm grinding, my teeth fell out. So he told the Caesar, the reason I'm not going there is because I cannot argue and I cannot express my opinion and express what Judaism is all about with the people who are heretics, since I'm not in my strength when I used to, the way that I used to when I was young. Be'Rav Amre Adla Avadina Bacheshna. He said, the school of Rav, they said, I'm searching for that which I have not lost, which means an elderly person walk, bend over, and appear to be searching for something, because is hardly walks. So that's the idea, that I don't have the strength that I used to. תנא רבי יוסף בר קיסמא אומר תבא תרי מתלת ויילל אחד דאז לה ולא עטיה. Again, Rashi explained it in the Kilomar here beautifully. He said that 2 is better than 3. 2 legs are better than 3. The third one is applied to the cane. And he said vaila, it's like said vei, said that something that disappeared, that you don't have what you have in your youth. Maihi, what's something that it's you leave and you don't have it back. Rav Chisda Yankuta. Rav Chisda, that's applied to youth. Lose your youth. And he said, Kiata Rav Dimi Amar. Rav Dimi used to come from Eretz Yisrael to Babylon, so he used to say, Yankuta kelila de varda, savuta kelila de chilfa. He says, the youth is like a beautiful of roses, crown of roses. Old age is a crown of thorns. It means that it's not. Rabbeinu Chana says that it's applied to the order, but it's also in a language, or allegorical language. It's applied to the different in strength, different in ability. Tana Bishmed Rabbi Meir dok bechachei v'tishkach benigrei, which means make sure that when you are young, eat properly, because what happened with elderly people, they less and less eating and the more drinking. They have issue of swallowing the food and using the teeth properly, so you see them many times drinking, using the drink much more. So he said, they said in the book of Jeremiah, for we are sated with our bread and we are well, and so no evil. So it means, meaning scholar, someone who study, which means as long as you're young, eat and eat properly. Use bread. Bread is like the foundation of food. Up to the age of 40, is that general, but it means at a certain age eating is very important. From that on, drinking is better. So Marsha put it together. He said Rabbi Meir telling a person that he should eat properly and drink properly when he's young. Why? Because when he turn old, he will be strong, but otherwise he will be weak at the old age, and then the eating will not be so helpful for him, because the essence of food, the Marsha said, it's eating in the young age up to the 40. That's what he said in general. Yomei Ra'ah, the days that it's hard, apply to the elderly years, the old age. So they said, Amar le'ahu goza. So that goza, it's like one of the people who are heretic, but it's also a forcium, which means someone who's working for the government, but it's also either tzeduki or heretic. So he tried to antagonize Rabbi Yeshua ben Korcha, who was bold. We said it earlier, if you remember. Korcha kereach is someone who's bold.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. Mehacha lekarchina kama havi. He tried to antagonize him. So he said, from here to the place of being bold, how far is it? So for sure he tried to start up with him, right? It's a playing with words here. So he said, Amar li kemehacha legozania. This fellow come from Goza. So he said, it's the same as from here to that place. Amar li tzduki barcha karcha be'arba. He said, you are tzduki. So he said that barcha karcha be'arba, which means bold bark is sold for 4 coin, 4 dinar. So it means that if you have this type of goat, that's the amount that they get for that. So Amarle, so he responded to him and said, Ikara shelifa betmania. He said that the castrated goat is sold for 8. Why it says sold for 8? So he explained that it have a better taste when they eat it, when it's castrated. You realize that Rabbi Yeshua is not wearing his shoes. Amar le de al sus melech. So he said that someone who's riding a horse is a king, and the al chamor ben chorin, someone who's riding a donkey is a free person. Is like try to imply, and someone who has shoes and is around his feet is a human, right? So again, the loha v'the loha, someone who doesn't have anything. The chafir ukvir tav minei, someone who's dig his grave is better than him. So again, it's a insult starting up with him. So he didn't give up. He answered back, and he said, Amar le, he responded, Yeshua said to that fellow, he said, Goza, Goza. Goza, Goza is like someone who's castrated.
Eunuch,
he said.
yes.
What?
Eunuch. Eunuch, yep.
He said, Tlat amartali. You said three things. Tlat shamata. Now you're going to hear three things. Hadrat panim zakan. The beauty of a person's face, like David, is his beard. Simchat lev isha. The joys of his heart is the wife. And then said in Tehillim in Psalm 127, Nachalat Hashem banim, that the inheritance of Hashem is his children. Baruch hamakom shemdacha mikulam. Blessed are you, God, that avoided all of that. What does that mean? So the Gemara in Yevamot said in page 80, they said that someone who's a how do you call it, unique? There's someone who was castrated, had no children, right?
That's right. Can't.
So he said that he doesn't have a beard. That's part of his disability.
Mm-hmm.
So he cannot have his own children, etc. He doesn't have all three things, not a wife, and not a beard, and castrated. So he said, blessed are you, God, who avoided you from all of this. Amarle, so he responded to Rabbi Yeshua, Karka Matsuyana, how dare you to say such a thing to me? You're bold. Amarle, he responded to him, Rabbi Yeshua, Ikara Shlifa Tocheicha. He said that I tried to rebuke you because how dare you to start up with me? It's inappropriate for you to talk to me like that, so I'm answering accordingly. אמר לרבי שמעון בן חלפתא, מפני מה לא הקבלנו פניך ברגל כדי שהגבילו אבותיי לאבותיך. He asked him, why didn't, what reason you didn't greet you during the festival the way that my father greeted you, father? Which means that it's a nice way to say that Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, he didn't come to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the head of the generation. Should come to visit him 3 times a day at the festivals. אמר לסלעים נעשו גבוהים, קרובים נעשו רחוקים, משתיים נעשו 3, נשים שלום בבית בטל. אוי אוי אוי, he said that I'm turning old. He said the big rocks of the road became tall. It's implication for his body. Which means that when I was young I can climb over rocks. Now I hardly walk. And he said what is distance, what is used to be close, it turned to be a long distance. And from 2 legs now I have 3 legs, which apply to his cane. And he said, he ended, he said, for the bring peace into the house, which means that the sexual drive, which is motivates a couple to make peace, is no more. So it means to say that if my wife gets angry, I left for a long time, I have nothing to appease her. Mm-hmm. So he said, "V'sugrud latayim bashuk, elu nekavav shel adam." And he said that in Ecclesiastic 12 said, "And the door shall be shut in the marketplace." Again, this is allegorical language to talk about human bodies. So it speak that those hole in the human body open and close easily when he's young. When he's turning old, there's a lot of blockage in his body. Bishfal kol atachana, which means the way of digestion is low. Bishvil kur kevan sheino tochen, which means that it's a stomach that not grinding and digesting one food the way that they used to. Ve'akom lekol hatzipor, and he wake up even for the voice of the bird. So it means she'afilu hatzipor menarato mishnato, that even a little bird, he heard it, he think that somebody come and he wake up with fear and anxiety. I have a friend that he went to a Yom Kippur war. Very, very big doctor. And when he turned to retirement, all of a sudden he was 27 years busy in a hospital and surgeries and things. He was fine. The minute he retired and he's no longer works, he have those nightmares of the war, and all the every little bird coming out around him is already wake up with sweating and tears. So, V'ishachu kol bnot hashir, he said that all the daughters of the music shall be brought low. So it means שאפילו כל שירות, שרים ושירות דומים עליהם כשיחה, which means he doesn't hear the same as he used to. So even people sing to him, he think like it's a conversation. ואב ברזילי הגלעדי אמר לדוד, they said in the text that Absalom instigated people against his father. So David ran out from Jerusalem and went to Machanaim, and he crossed the Jordan River. And Barzillai, the Giladi, he and several people that supported David helped him with the necessary food and whatever they need. So then David came back. So Absalom greeted him in the Gilgal. So David wants to show reciprocation to Barzillai. So David invited him to go with him to Jerusalem, and Barzillai rejected, and he said, "I'm too old to do that." Amar LeDavid, he said in the second book of Samuel, chapter 19, "Ben 80 shana anuchi hayom, ha'yada להבחין בין טוב לרע." I'm 80, I cannot distinguish between good and bad, which means מכאן שדעותם של זקנים משתנות, which means that the opinion of elderly people change because they're turning old. And I'm using the frank, straight language, which is the Alzheimer, some type of symptoms of that disease. אם ייתם עבדיך אל אשר אוכל ואת אשר אשתה, can I taste the food that you, King David, going to give me? מכאן ששפתותיהם של זקנים מתרפתות, which means the lips, the ability of eat, change by old age. אם משמעות בכל שלם משכון, מכאן שזקנים זקנים מתכבדות. You're going to make a big choir or instruments to play for me, but I cannot hear clearly. הרב ברזילי לי שקר היה. So they said that he was a liar, the Rab said. Why? דהי עם תדבה ברבי בת 90 ותרתי נשנים ואהבת העם קידרה. We know that by Rabbi, he has a maid, that she was 92 years of age, yet before the serving Rabbi, she always tasted the food, and the taste of the food was always good in her, and she was much older. She is 92. So now Rabbi said something very true. He said, Barzillai הגלעדי שטוף בזימה הווה, וכל השטוף בזימה זקנה קופצת עליו. He said that he was a person that was filled of was steeped with promiscuity, which means
promiscuity, yeah,
yes, he was very much with that, and therefore anyone who's steeped in that is overtaken by old age before his time. That's what the Rambam said. So just recently one of our members gave me this book. It's called Creating Moment of Joy by Jolene Brecky. Excellent book. And that book gives instruction how to handle people with Alzheimer's disease and elderly people, especially if it's a spouse, how to handle a situation that suddenly that person, we have one of our members just turned 70. It's amazing. And he was a very, very respected person in the community, and all of a sudden he's not recognized his wife.
Right.
It's a very sad situation. So to speak about the old age, Tanya, רבי ישמעאל ורבי יוסי אומר, תלמידי חכמים כל זמן שמזקינים חוכמה נתווספת בהם. Says that's the difference between a Torah scholar and ignorant person. They said that the elderly people, the older they get, the more wisdom they have. שנאמר, they said in book of Eov, book of Job, chapter 12, ב-60 חוכמה ובאורך ימים תבונה. With aged man is wisdom, and length of days bring understanding. So, ועמי הארץ, however, people who are ignorance, people who are not learning. So they said, כל זמן שמזקינים טיפשות נתווסף להם. The older they get, they are more foolish. שנאמר מסיב שפה לנאמנים ותם זקנים ייקח. So because they said in the book of Job, chapter 12, he removes the speech of man of trust and take away the understanding of the aged. גם מגבוה יראו שאפילו גבשושית קטנה דומה עליו קרי הרים. That they mix up the size, they turn old, they don't recognize even a little bit, a small steep of mountain, they think that it's a high mountain. וחתחתים בדרך בשעה שמלך נעשו לו תווהים. When he walks, he is full of anxiety. Elderly person start asking himself before he take any trip, should I go, should I not go? It's too much, I'm not so sure, it's hard for me. I can go up to the end of the street, but I cannot go more than that, etc. וינעץ השקט, זוק לבוסת. So, וינעץ השקט, it's part of the body. It says that the terror shall be on the road, and the almond tree shall blossom. This is his hip bone that protrudes from the skin of an elderly person. And then ויסתכל החגב אלו הגבות ותפר רב יונה זו חמדה. So they said that the bad cost, the upper copper berry shall fail. So this is the sexual desire that ceased. So a person turn old is different status. The GEMARA said in Yevamot that the person, even if he have children, should make an effort to have children as much as he can. Yevamot Samech Aleph 61, even in the old age, but they turn some age that he cannot produce any more children. So he cry over that. אמר רב כהנא, מה דכתיב כי הוא אמר ויהי זו אישה. Says, what does that mean in the book of Psalms that God, he was spoken, it was, he commanded and it stood. So he said that he spoken it was, this is a woman that the man married. And then he said, he commanded and stood, that's applied to children, that who one works hard to raise. Tana isha lechemet mele'et so'a ופיה מלא דם והכל רצים אחריה. He said that a woman is essentially a flesh full of feces, a reference to digestive system, and a mouth full of blood. That's a euphemistic reference to menstruation. Yes, yet men are not deterred, and they run after her with desire. So he said that that's what Hashem planted in the persons, that Rashi explained, that naturally it should not have a desire, but that's the reason why Hashem put Adam to sleep. And the whole idea of the desire for that is in order to have a future generation. They said in Ecclesiastic that the person goes for his eternal home. Remember we talked yesterday about the Noam Elimelech, that he dedicated his book, my great-grandfather, to the concept of tzaddik, what is a righteous man. So he explained that there are different levels of tzaddik, different level of piety. So he said, when it's come to world to come, they appointed the person according to his ability. You know the story about heaven, that a fellow came in and the angel greeted him at the entrance, and he said, what is your name? He said, Joe Cohen. What do you do? I'm a taxi driver. Where? In New York City. He says, here is a golden, go in, you are in the highest throne. Then after him, someone who was a rabbi of a shul came in, and he says, what is his name? And he says, Rabbi Wolfson. Where are you? I'm in New York. He says, all right, you go to the lower level, low chamber. So he said, how come? I can't believe it. I just heard this guy, he's a taxi driver, he's getting the highest place, and you give me the lowest. I all my life teach. He says, well, when you speak, everybody fall asleep. When he drove, everybody prayed.
That's right. I think it's also interesting when you're talking about the concept of tzaddik here, especially in conjunction with the birthday that we celebrated this last Shabbat, where you pointed out that 90
was
tzaddik.
90 is a tzaddik, is a tzniut, is a Is all days it's tzedakah. Yes,
very interesting.
90 expressed today. So they said, כי הולך אדם לבית העולמו, אמר רבי יצחק, ולבית שכל צדיק וצדיק נותנים לו מדור לפי כבודו. משל למלך שנכנסו בעבדיו לעיר, כשהם נכנסים כולם בשער אחד נכנסים, כשלנים כל אחד ואחד נותן לו מדור לפי כבודו. Imagine if you have a very important person, let's say the president. He goes with all of his team. They occupy a hotel. So you have a suite, you have a fancy rooms, you have a basic rooms. Who is getting what? Everyone according to his dignity, according to his position. So the same in the world to come. ואמר רבי יצחק, מה דכתיב כי העלות והשחרות הבל? What it means when they said in the ecclesiastic that for childhood and youth are vanity. He said, דברים שאדם עושה בילדותו משחירים פניו לעת זקנתו. If a person involved too much with youth, in a sense, with either over using of his ability or sins that involve in the youth, then it's making his face, which means that the face will shame when he grew older. That was Rabbi Yoshia Pinto said. And then it said, ואומר רבי יצחק השאר עמה למד כמחת בשר החי שנאמר אך בשרו על אביכיו. There's a process of decay. You read in the book Gesher Chaim, the Bridge of Life, from late Rabbi Tukochinsky, that is a process. So he said the maggots that eat the flesh of the deceased are as painful to the dead as needle the flesh of the living, which means there is a still feeling that's said in the book of Job, chapter 14, but his flesh is in pain for him, and his soul mourns over him. אמר רב יהודה מת, אמר רב חיסדא, אמר רב חיסדא, נפשו של אדם מתאבלת עליו כל שבעה, שנאמר ונפשו עליו תאבל. He says that there is a 7 days period that the person's soul mourn for him, doing all 7 days of mourning, following death. As they said in Genesis 50, they said, and he mourned his father 7 days. They said about way that they mourned the ancestors, it was 7 days. So mourning 7, that's the idea that it's 7 days. אמר רב יהודה מת שאין לו מנחמים. If someone passed, the deceased person has no comfort and there's nobody in mourn for him. הולכים 10 בני אדם ויושבים במקומו. The 10 people need to go and mourn. The Barasha said it differently, that it's applied to the soul over the body. ההוא דשכיב בשבטי רב יהודה. לא היו מנחמים. It was a fellow that live in a Rabbi Yehuda neighborhood and does not have a comforter, which means there's no mourners. We just turned the page to 152b. כל יום עד אהבה היה רב יהודה בעשרה ויד ובדוכתי. לאחר שווה מתחז לבחל מד רב יהודה ואמר לתנוח דעתך שנח דעתי. So Rav Yehuda did a great mitzvah. He arranged a minyan and he sat like a mourners for him, and after 7 days Rav Yehuda saw him in a dream and he told him, thank you very much, put your mind in rest, for you have put my mind in rest, which is in a way is like the deceased thank him. אמר רבי אבאו כל שומרים בפני המת יודע שיסתם הגולל. In a sense that the dead body is like almost an active person. So right after the passing of a person, the soul is still connected to the body in some level, and therefore knows what's going on around him. There are some who hold that it's even later, but anything you said about the dead, it's still heard, and therefore it's very important for the speakers, the people who do eulogy and other afterward, to be careful what they said, because even they say nice things, but if it's not fully true, it hurts them. So a person needs to be very careful what they are saying. פליגי ברבי חייא ורבי שמעון ברבי. אחד אמר עד שיסתם הגולל ואחד אמר עד שיתקל הבשר. One said that until we are getting to the final burial stage, which is the covering the entire coffin, and the other one said until the flesh decomposed. מאן דאמר עד שיתקל הבשר דכתיב אך בשרו על אביך ונפשו עליו תאבל. The one who said until the body decomposed, because it's written in the book of Job chapter 14, but his flesh grieves for him, and his soul mourned over him. Manda amarat shisatem agolal, but one that said that it's until they seal the top stones on the body, dichtiv, because it's in Ecclesiastic chapter 12, וישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה, והרוח תשוב אל אלוקים אשר נתנה. They said the dust returned to the earth that it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. So that's the idea that the minutes that he was buried, it's a departure between the soul and the body, and the spirit in that sense returned to Almighty, and is not connected to the body anymore. Tanu Rabbanan. והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה. They said that in Ecclesiastic 12 that the spirit returned to the God who gave it. So they said, תנה לו כמו שנתנה לך. You should return that gift of life to God the same way as He gave it to you. The same way, בתהרה, that God gave you the soul, pure soul, without sin, אף אתה בתהרה. When you return the soul to God, it should be pure of sin. משל למלך בשר ודם שחילק בלגן מלכות לעבדיו. Imagine a human king that gave to his servants a special clothing, פיקחים שבהם קיפלון וניחון בקופסה. The smartest servant, what they do, they fold it nicely and put it in a package, which means that they are very careful to use it properly. טיפשים שבהם הלכו ועשו מלאכה. The stupid one, what they do, the fools, they took that clothing and used the regular wool. למי ביקש המלך את כליו, suddenly the king wants back whatever he gave them. פיקחים שבהם החזירו לו כשהם מגועצים. The smartest one returned to him the way that he gave them, show respect. טיפשים שבהם החזירו להם שהם מלוכלכים. The fools return it dirty. שמח המלך לקראת פיקחים וחס לקראת טיפשים. The king was happy for the smart, the shrewd ones, and he was angry with the stupid one. על פיקחין אמר, יינתנו כלי לאוצר. So the smartest one, he said that those who gave it back in a nice way should be in my treasure. והם ילכו לבתיהם לשלום, and those will go at peace to their homes. על טיפשים עליי כלי נתנו לחובס, והם התחבשו בבית האסורים. He says, okay, the stupid one, he says, take all the clothing to the laundry and you go to jail because you disrespect the king. אף הקדוש ברוך הוא, in an anthropomorphic language, in our language we talk about God, על גופן של צדיקים אומר, יבוא שלום וינוח על משכבותם. They said in Isaiah 57, they return in peace. ועל נשמתן הוא אומר, והייתה נפש האדוני צרורה בצרור החיים. They said in the first book of Samuel, chapter 25, that the soul of my master will be among the living, which means that they return to the treasure of the king. על גופן של רשעים הוא אומר, אין שלום אמר השם לרשעים. They said in Isaiah 48 that there is no peace, God said, for the wicked, which means that they will be in darkness. ועל נשמתן, and the soul הוא אומר, they said in the first book of Samuel, ואת נפש אוהביך יקלענה בתוך כף הקלע, which means that Rashi explained that the souls of your enemies he should sing out in the hollow of the sling, which means that it's a expression to a stage of suffering, which means those who disrespected the pure soul you gave, when they return it, they're going to be punished for that. רבי אליעזר אומר, נשמתם של צדיקים גנוזות אחת לכסי הכבוד, שנאמר ואת הנפש אדוני צרורה בצרור החיים, את השם אלוקיך. He says that the soul of the righteous in under the throne of honor and glory of God, because they said it what we said before, that and the soul of my Lord shall be bound in a bundle of life, that said in Samuel chapter 25. However, ושל רשעים זוממות והולכות. However, the soul of the wicked, it's inside what we call early כף הקלע, hollow of a sling, which means that they like in jail and they suffer. And he said, ומלאך אחד עומד בסוף העולם, מלאך אחד עומד בסוף העולם, מקלעים נשמתם זה לזה, שנאמר ונפש אוהביך יקלענה בתוך כף הקלע. It's in other language is like two angels standing in both sides, and like in our simple language play the ball with the soul, like throwing the soul from one to another, so they have no peace. כף הקלע is a language that express act of serenity, which means act of a lack of equanimity. A person is in a constant wandering. אמר לרבא לרב נחמן של בינוניים, like the Baal HaTanya said that there is a righteous and wicked, and in between it's called בינוני. מהי הוא? What happened to their soul? אמר לי, איקה שכינה לא אמרי לאוהי מילתא. if I was dead, I couldn't tell you what is all about. So in other words, he heard it in the hidden way, and he doesn't want to reveal it. The Maharal said that that's a person in a constant dialogue between the good and bad inclination, and therefore it's an angel that called Duma. So that's the angel that in charge for the spirit of the dead. Duma meaning that it's like domem in Hebrew, which Maharal said that he cannot speak anymore. Duma, we said it Halel, right? Yeah. So therefore, that in his head, Halalu yesh lehem manuach, v'halalu en lehem manuach. It's like a decision. Some have a peace and some not. Amar Rav Mari, Yedidim tzadikim da'avu afra. The righteous of the body of the righteous is decay. They said in Ecclesiastic 12 that the dust returned to the place that it was. Hanu kafulai, da'avu kafula be'arad Rav Nachman. It was people that dig, and it was the place that he was buried. Nachar ba'hu Rav Achai bar Hoshaya. So Rav Achai bar Hoshaya screamed at those people because it was a grave of the righteous rabbi. Atu v'amru Rav Nachman nachar ben Gavra. They said that the dead person screamed at us. Ata Rav Nachman came to that burial spot. V'amar lei ma'ini umar. He says to the dead body, who are you? Which usually we're not allowed to speak, but we're talking about very high level of spirituality. Amar lei, the dead person said to Rav Nachman, Ana Achai bar Yoshai. It's the name of one of the great rabbi. He says, that's the name. That's my name, Achai bar Yoshai. Amar lei, v'lav amar Rav Meri Yedidim tzadikim da'avu afra. How come your body did not decay? They said that the righteous person become decomposed. They decay too. Amar lei, Umani Mari, who is the one that you quote? De lo yadana lei, that I don't know him. Amar lei, ve'akraktiv, it's written, ve'yashuva afar la'aretz k'shaya. We said clearly that the dust will return to the earth as it was, that in Ecclesiastic 12. Amar lei, Rav Nachman said, the karait koelet lo akarait mishlei. So he said that whoever taught you the book of Ecclesiastic not teach you the book of Proverbs, because it's written, dechtiv, in the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, urkav atzamot kin'ah. It says that envy is rotting of the bones, which means, kol mi sheyesh lo kin'ah belibo atzmotav markivin. Kol mi she'en lo kin'ah belibo en atzmotav markivin. Whoever is envy in his heart during his lifetime, his bone rot in the grave. Anyone does not envy in his heart, his bone do not rot. So that's what he meant. The Maharal said that the envy, it's something very self-destructive in the soul of a person. So therefore, that's affected the person after his passing. The Maharal said that it was not really a dialogue between the two. It was more in a sense of spiritual expressions, like expression that he used words to express that dialogue. Gshashe, Rav Nachman touched him. Chazir hid b'meshasha. He saw that he had a substance, and again Maharal said that it's not physical touching, so it depends how you study this GEMARA. Amar lei, Rav Nachman said to Rav Achai, since your body is full, lei kumar legavei debeita, let the master arise and come into my house. Amar lei, galeta da'atar da'afilu nevi lo karet. Now you reveal that you have not studied the prophets, and it's not just the writing which you are not knowledge, because it's written, dechtiv, they said in Ezekiel 37, v'yidatem ki ani Hashem, befitchi et kivrechem, ubalotchi etchem mikivrechem ami. They said that, and you shall know that the Lord, that I am the Lord, when I open your grave and I lift up your grave, my nation. So it's only the Almighty can do that, to resurrect the dead and bring them out of the grave. Amar lei va'aktiv, it's written in Bereshit, in Genesis 3, ki afar ata ve'lafar dashu, that you are from dust and you should return to dust. Amar lei ahu sha'a achad kodem tchiat hametim. That's applied to 1 hour before the resurrection of the dead. So the Maharsha said, so that they too may be created anew. Amar lei tzduki le Rabbi Abahu. So that's in relate to that subject. A certain tzduki, a apostate, said to Rabbi Abahu, Amritu, you said, Nishmatan shel tzadikim gnuzot tachat kisei hakavod. The righteous people are stoned, the righteous soul are stoned beneath the throne of glory. If that's the true, Ovid Tamya, Heicha le'askel Shmuel ben Gida. You know the story that Samuel talked to that Samuel talked to Saul. So how come that lady, that Balat Ov, that psychic, whatever you call her, she was able to communicate with the soul of Samuel by the request of King Saul? So that's something you read about it in the book of Samuel, first one, chapter 28. Amarle Hatam, over there the story of King Saul and that lady, Betoch 12 chodesh shava. That was during the 12 months after the Samuel prophet was passing. So she was able, because to communicate, even he was a righteous man, his soul not fully departed. The Tanya kol 12 chodesh gufo kayam nishmato olav yoredet. That they said during the 12 months, the deceased person body remains and his soul ascend and descend, such as sometimes the world and its body, which means it's not fully departed. That's one of the reasons that we say Kaddish, to bring the soul to peace. לאחר 12 חודש, but after 12 months, הגוף בטל, the body ceased to exist. We just turned to 153a, ונשמתו עולה ושוב אינה יורדת, and his soul ascend, but it's after 12 months, it's not descend anymore. So Rav Chai is exceptional story that was exceeded the 12 months. אמר רבי יהודה בן רב שמואל בר שילת משמי דרב, מהספדו של אדם ניכר, אם בן עולמו הבא או אם לא. The people who attend his funeral, the way that they give a eulogy to that person, you can know, you basically get the foundation if he is attending the world to come or not. If nobody cries, the rabbi said, and no one cares, so you know if it's a righteous or not. So they said, Eini, is that true? V'amar l'Rav Shmuel bar Shilat achim be'esped da'atam ka'imna. He said that if the people you should make sure when you give the eulogy that I hear after my passing and I can cry with the people, which means that if you do a eulogy properly, bring people to cry. So it's anyway, so it said Lokasha, it's not a question. It's not necessary that the people get emotional anyway. Had the mechamulei ve'achim, that the person who gives the eulogy, he warmed them up. Had the mechamulei ve'lo achim, that the one who gives the eulogy, he attempt to steer the listener, but he's not steer them. So it's indication that the deceased person is not righteous. So אמר אביי לרבא כגון מר וסנו לכולו פומפודאי. So it's like you that people in Pumpedita, they're well known as unscrupulous people, they hate him. Manachim Bespeda, who can say a proper eulogy? אמר להם מסתאי עד ורבא בר חנן. It's enough if you, Rabbi Bachanan, will give the eulogy. You know the story about the fellow rabbi that came to a place just as a sub, and was a full audience, and he wanted to give a eulogy, and he said, I never met the deceased. Can anyone help me? And no one stood up. He said, it's second, third time. He says, nobody's going to say anything. I'm going to just say a prayer and it's done. So somebody stood up from the very back, and he said, Rabbi, his brother was much worse than him. ואמיני רבי אלעזר מרב. זהו בן העולם הבא. Who is the one who deserve world to come? אמר לי, they said in Isaiah chapter 30, ואוזניך תשמע לדבר מאחריך לאמור, זה הדרך בו לכו בו כי תאמינו וכי תסבילו. And they said that your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the path, walk on it, and when you turn to the right or to the left. So if people say good things about him, it means that he's occupied the world to come. Rabbi Chanina amar kol shedat rabotav nocha imenu. As long as his teacher are happy with him, because the Maharal said the parents always say good things, but if his teacher is happy, so he's entered the world to come. Then they said in the Kohelet, in Ecclesiastic chapter 12, כי הולך אדם אל בית עולמו וסבו בשוק הסופדים. When a person passed, so the people give a eulogy. בני גלילה אמרי עשה דברים לפני מיתתך. So the people of Galilee said that this warn a person that you should make good things about you, because usually the people who give eulogy apply to the recent last year before his passing. So you should make good deed all your life, particularly that time, close to that time, so people around you can say good things about you after you passing. So in other words, the person should not do a good deed just in order to have a nice eulogy for him, but the idea is that it's a like a pass to enter the world to come. Rabbi Yehuda Amrei, Bnei Yehuda used to say, "Aseh dvarim lachar mitatcha." You do things that around your time of eulogy they said good things. V'lo pligei ma ki'atre ma ki'atre. Each of them talk different according to their community custom. Tanatam, they said in Pirkei Avot chapter 2, Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Shuv yom echad lifnei mitatcha. Even a person live in inappropriate way all his life, but is the gate of repentance is always open, as Rabbeinu Yonah said in Sharet Shuvah, even very close to the end. Shalu talmidav el Rabbi Eliezer, b'chad amudei ez yom she'amut. A person never know when is the last day of his life. Amar leken lehen v'chol sheken yashuv hayom she'amut lemachar. That's another reason for a person to make teshuvah right away, because he doesn't know when is the last day of his life. Maybe, like the Rambam said, a person always feel that this is the last day of his life, so therefore you need to do the preparation for that moment. That's what King Solomon said in his wisdom in the book of Kohelet chapter 9. This is allegorical language that said that in every moment your clothing will be white, and oil always be at the top of your head. That's applied to the body and the soul. The clothing applied to the soul, and it's a meaning that the person should keep his soul pure all his life, and that any moment, Rashi said, your soul should be pure. It's like the king invites his servant to come for a meal, but didn't designate a time. The smartest servant, they prepare themselves, dress properly, prepare all the needs, and sit at the gate of the king and waiting for the proper invitation. It's everything is ready, so it may happen next second that the king asks us, so we need to be ready for that. The stupid, what they said, the king invited us, but he didn't say when it's happened, so let's do whatever we want to do, and until we prepare the meal, it takes a lot of time to do preparation, so we have enough time to prepare ourselves for that meal. So suddenly the king called for his servant. The smartest one enter to the king when they are fully dressed properly. However, it means that the person can pass suddenly, and he doesn't have enough time, God forbid, to do teshuvah the way that he planned in advance. The stupid one have to rush to the king, like the story in Esther with Haman, not ready, and then they, because they with their labors, they don't look proper to go to the king. The king was happy for the smart and angry over the stupid. So the smartest one will sit and eat because they are ready to eat. The stupid one, they should stand and look at other people eating. Even those full servants, that still looks like people who serve. Ela elu ve'elu yoshvin, alalu ochlim v'alalu re'evin, alalu shotim v'alalu tzmeim. He says that both of them sit and eat, but the difference is those who remain hungry and those who satisfaction. They said in Isaiah 65, כה אמר השם, this is the word of the Lord, הנה עבדי יאכלו ואתם תרעבו, הנה עבדי ישתו ואתם תצמאו, הנה עבדי ירונו מטוב לב ואתם תצעקו מכאב לב. He says that, behold, therefore said God, behold, my servants shall eat and you shall be hungry. Behold, my servants shall drink and you shall be thirsty. My servants shall sing from a joyous heart and you will scream from pain heart. דבר אחר, the last part, בכל עת יהיו בגדיך לבנים. What King Solomon said at all time, your clothes be white. That's applied to what? To tzitzit, the mitzvah of tzitzit, that the person asked to wear the arbak and for the four corners of tzitzit. The Torah said in Bamidbar 15 that it has to be a combination of white and little techelet. But if you don't know what is techelet, so you wear the tzitzit. So bechol et, every moment your clothes will be white, which means you have these four corners of tzitzit. ושמן על ראשך לא יחצר, and the oil will be not absent upon your head, the elu tefillin, that's applied to tefillin, that which are worn on the person's head. Hadran alach shoel, we're going to revisit this chapter in Mitzvah Hashem. The first important halacha is a Rambam Hilchot Avel, chapter 13, Shulchan Aruch Yoredea 376. Met she'en lo nachamim. God forbid a deceased person who has no comforter. If a person passed away and has no relatives to mourn for him, the minyan, 10 people come and sit in a person's home for a full 7 days, while others come and comfort them in accordance with the example of Rav Yehuda. However, the Rama writes, I have not seen people do this. Even so, if the deceased has no mourners, 10 people gather and pray in place where the person died for 7 days of mourning. That's the Rav Yehuda opinion of the GEMARA. So again, it's a great mitzvah for some people to say Kaddish for those who are no longer among the living and have nobody else to say Kaddish for them. Shuv yom echad lifnei mitatcha. This is Rambam, Hilchot Teshuvah, chapter 7. A person should always view himself as if death is at hand, and that he may die any moment in his current sinful state. These thoughts will cause a person to repent immediately. One should not say, oh, when I grow old, I'll return to God, lest one die before reaching old age. This is the meaning of what King Solomon said, at all times your clothes should be white. And since yesterday was the yortzeit of my late great-great-grandfather, Rabbi Elimelech of Lizhensk, there are many people who read his Tzetel Katan, his special instructions on a daily basis, how a person always have a feeling that in the next moment is going to pass, and therefore all his life occupied with the tshuva.